Yo, so we back in here for another edition of F-ya-Motha, and that was Grammy winning artist Sabrina Carpenter. I have no idea who the fuck she is. Of course, I don't listen to shitty 2000 sounding or shitty pop sounding music from the early 2000s. So then there's that. I think she's a newer iteration of that form of music. But the video, she actually depicted men being killed, which is a form of misandry. And we never talk about misandry, but everybody wants to talk about misogyny. I'm gonna let my man explain this shit, how misandry is actually as big of a problem, if not bigger, than misogyny in America, and goes unnoticed, and nobody seems to say shit.
I'm gonna list these things off, and I wrote them down to make sure I don't forget it. You don't care about mandatory paternity tests. You don't care about paternity fraud. You don't care about male suicide rates. You don't care about equalizing hard, laborious jobs outside. You don't want to equalize that. You don't care about what happens to people that are falsely accused, which is almost always exclusively men. You don't actually care about the declining school performance, the rise in ADHD diagnosis, and the psychiatric medication that comes from it. You don't care about the lack of homeless shelters for men. You don't care about the weaponization of the family court, the equal custodial rights, reproductive say for men, reduction in child support and alimony, pathologizing of just men and masculinity in general, negative attitudes towards even men that want a nuclear family. You don't think or care about any of these things. And I'm not even saying it's just the feminists that don't care about it.
Nobody
I'm saying most people who don't do what I do don't care about this at all. And you're creating, and we talked about this 80-20 rule. What's happening to the 80%? You don't care.
Not good.
And the beauty is if I just get the man I want, if I just get the partner I want, if I just, I don't care. I don't care about what's happening with men. Let's bring attention back to women. That's what the detective did in that show.
Right.
And that is what society in Western cultures is unfortunately like. Most people only care about males or boys or men if they are their brother, their son, or their father, or their uncle, or their close friend. This society, in the quest to be fair to women, to improve their rights, allow the worst representatives to take it to its furthest extreme.
Right.
When we talk so much about misogyny, most women can't tell you what the term is for a strong distaste and hatred for men. What's the term? What's
Misandry.
the misandry? Being a misandrist. Most men's experiences that we keep labeling as incels, we keep labeling as misogynists. Their experiences in coworker situations, in the schools, dating, on dating apps, is that a lot of women are either misandrous or they're so reductionistic of men that if you don't have the money, you have no say and you need to shut up. And even if you do have the money, it's happy wife, happy life once I'm in your life.
Yo, so we back in here for another edition of F-ya-Motha, and my man couldn't have said it better than I could have said it. It goes unnoticed, and it's not been lost on me, right? It's not unbeknownst to me why it goes unnoticed. It goes unnoticed because, one, women are the weaker sex in this country. They masquerade like they're equal. They masquerade like they want equity. But most women want superiority, right? Now, I'm not a religious man, but if you go back to the Bible, right, just use it as a referendum. And if that's true, then the blame gets placed on women for the fall of mankind and kind of lets men off the hook. God puts the man in charge as being a leader over the woman, the dominant one. And I don't think women, at least the religious ones, really like that whole arrangement. Now, like I said, I'm not a religious man. I think that's not true. I think it's a whole fairy tales and shit. But let's just go with the narrative that it may be real. If that's the truth and women that are religious buy into that, they feel some type of resentment. And the reason that it goes unnoticed is because as the weaker vessel, they feel like men have been oppressing them and don't let them do what they want and don't let them have their way. However, we see if you let them have their way, the rise of OnlyFans, hell, that little internet influencer Bad Baby made a rap record. Why? I don't know. Bitch ain't a rapper. They gave her a record deal. fresh off a Dr. Phil show. And after she turned 18, she went on OnlyFans and made $52 million. That was after taxes. So I'm not saying that, you know what I'm saying, we should be controlling them or dominating women. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that if you let them have their free reign, they'll holler about feminism and that how women aren't equal to men. But the distortion of traditionalism, morals, principles, and everything just goes the fuck out the window. So people let them have their way because, like I said, they people deem women as the weaker sex, even women, even though they masquerade like they're the same as men. I had to explain to my mom, you're not the same as a man. You may talk all that hot shit, but at the end of the day, that's just hot shit. That ain't about shit. And like you said, most women can't tell you the definition of misogyny, right? But they'll put it on a man that doesn't agree with them, or when a man has an opposition to whatever they're saying, the first thing they say that he's misogynist. Like Andrew Tate, I've listened to the NPR station where people have actually, women reporters of course, have actually labeled him misogynistic and will literally address him as such. Internet sensation and misogynistic podcast speaker Andrew Tate. Well, if you ever listen to any of his videos and podcast videos, he doesn't put women down. He actually uplifts them. He tells them why they should have morals and principles and yada yada, and they push back against it. Why? I don't know. So that right there lets you know that they're distorting what misogyny is. Most of them don't know what it is. And like I said, whenever they feel like somebody's actually speaking or challenging something that they do, they deem it misogyny. And on top of all that, like I've said this in countless videos, that I've actually had to tell people, women namely, right, my sister included, if you're not a trained clinician, you should probably not use clinician terms like misogyny or homophobia. These are terms that people use. These are jargon that people use that are in the industry, in that particular field. If you're a layman person, a regular motherfucker, you shouldn't be using the word, because as soon as something rubs you the wrong way, you'll misclassify it, and I don't think that you are qualified to actually do such. So yeah, will it continue to go unchecked and unnoticed? Who knows? Who gives a fuck? When I see a woman that's a feminist, I steer clear of her. When I go on dates and a woman has feministic views, those typically are women that feel have misandry views. So me, I just avoid them like the fucking plague. At the end of the day, that's all you ever can do, is avoid people or things that you don't really admire or have any common interest with. That's what the fuck I just stay out the way, because I know it's just gonna take a left turn, or this person is operating with not a full deck. They're not all there. They're operating emotionally. I ain't got time for it. And they're not using reason and logic and all the components that a healthy person should be using. So yeah, when I see women say it, like I've worked jobs and women have said blatantly misandrous shit, and I could let it go. And I know y'all watching me pick my nose, fucking allergy, all this goddamn pollen on my car. Yeah, I pointed it out because I ain't letting the shit go. And they'll be like, oh, you just nah. If I said that same shit, it'd be a problem. So when you say it, I gotta point it out, right? We gotta check that shit, because that wasn't right. Now I'm in Atlanta, mostly black city, so typically when I'm like, it's usually a black woman saying some shit, they don't know what the fuck misandry is, right? When I call it out, typically they concede that was fucked up, and they don't do it. I lived on the West Coast for a little bit, and whenever you point that out to namely white women, they like to push back, right? They like to say, nah, well, it's not misandrous and I love men. And yeah, but you just said some man hating shit. They push back. So I just steer clear of the bullshit, because I don't got time for it. And on top of all that, like, they want equality and equity in this country, but then they say shit that's misandrous. It's almost like when gay people say heterophobic shit and nobody like bats an eye. But let me say some homophobic shit, then everybody is up in arms. So we gonna call it on one side, we need to call it on the other side. In any event, I'm out.